So what we are going to do today in this session is we are going to talk about a certification program which is called as Microsoft Azure Fundamentals AZ-900. Okay, so this is a certification from Microsoft. This certificate covers all the foundation of the cloud, all the cloud basic aspects of the cloud from the foundation perspective. So this is covered in this particular certification. So we would be doing this, and people who are already working in cloud. Okay, so maybe there are two parts of this particular session. So in the first part of the session, we would be doing pretty much basic stuff, and in the next part of the session we'll be talking slightly we'll be actually developing a website, so that would be hosted on Azure. This is about Microsoft Azure fundamentals. Okay, there would be almost like 6 sessions, and in this 6th session we would be covering the 12 chapters that we have of AZ-900, and at the end of that, so someone who is having time to do daily study on the different topics can finish the studies within couple of weeks. But if people are not having time, then they can finish it in a month. So it's based on the time. So I've spaced it out in such a way that I don't know different teams and their time or what is their availability. So I've just thought of having 2 sessions in a particular day. So today we are planning to cover first 2 topics in this, and as I said, like the first 2 topics, the first one is quite basic, and then the second one we would be developing an Azure website. I'll be showing you how to develop that. Okay, and at the end, when it comes to like say November or December, then you can sign up for the certification. The cost of the certification is $99, guys, and you can sign up at any proctored center and take up that certification. So guys, is the expectation setting done? Are you clear like what we are trying to do? There are no assumptions, because some people were asking me that will this cost be taken care by the company, and I said no, this is not a company initiative. It is like just for our self-learning. So any questions guys on that?
Yes, no questions from my end.
Yes, it's clear, Yogesh.
Yeah, cool. Because at the end of the day, if people are also kind of I mean, they might not like if they at the end of the day understand that there is a fee of $99. So this fee goes to Microsoft, and no, I mean, I'm not charging anything, or no one is charging anything. It's just that it is Microsoft who would be you'll be paying it to Microsoft, and then you'll be getting certified. So guys, do you think this is interesting, and I mean this looks okay to you, and to proceed on the next slide? If you have any questions, you can stop me now.
Yogesh, thank you so much for the initiative.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Okay, so yeah, so these are the topics, right? So, and at the end of the day, we can have, I'm also thinking of creating a WhatsApp group where we can discuss questions. So see, these, so people who are working on Azure, they would find that, okay, these are very obvious things, okay? But when there are some tricky questions regarding regions, regarding availability zones, so these are the things that we'll see in future, or regarding PaaS, AS or SaaS. So these are very basic things, but the questions can be tricky. And then hence the exam becomes slightly tricky. It's not that difficult so at the start you might feel it is difficult, but once you prepare these 13 sessions, I think it should be pretty easy to clear the certification. Okay, so with this I jump on the next slide. So before I give you the definition of cloud computing, can anyone from the team who is not working in cloud directly can try to give a definition, and then we'll also ask definition to someone who is working in Azure currently. So anyone wants to volunteer and talk a bit about what is cloud computing?
Yogesh, this is Shivam from Perimeter. For me, the cloud is just someone else's computer I'm using on rent. That's it.
Perfect, Shivam. So are you working in Azure or any cloud computing?
No, we work on Azure, but we just only do NSGs there, nothing else. No VMs, no development, nothing. Just only NSG managing. That's it.
Okay, cool. So energy is one of the topic that we have in our syllabus in the networking, but it comes later on. So it comes in chapter number 8. So good, we'll take some help from you because the
So
questions
just to
are on
add,
it. Yeah.
Yogesh, this is Vinayak here. I just want to add few points to Shivam's answer. So
Yes.
two important aspects are on demand and I mean, there are various demands depending on the business case. I mean, the computing demands and storage demands. So in cloud, those aspects are very flexible. That's what my understanding is.
Yeah, it is. This is one of the characteristics of cloud. So yeah, you are spot on, Vinayak. Good. And I think Vinayak is one of the most active learner in the group. Last year we started big data and he was quite active. So I think Vinayak, thanks for joining again.
Thanks, Yogesh.
Okay. Yep. So yeah, guys. So the definition, both of these participants have actually given very right answers. So cloud computing is like renting resources like storage space or CPU cycles on any other company's computers. Okay. And so what it also means is, so see today we at our organization might be owning some servers. So that it's completely opposite of it. So we don't essentially have to own anything. We just have to rent it. So if I want to store my photos, I will store it on say team site, and team site, let's say it's on cloud. I want to store some documents, I'll store it over there and we are renting it, something of that sort. Okay. So in very simple terms, it is not purchasing, it is just renting. So to make it very crude and very simple. So with this, what happens exactly is, so we don't have to, like maintain any, if I want to do any storage, I would just rent the storage space. If I want to do any computing, I'll just rent the CPU cycles. If I want to do something networking, I'll just do something around networking. So these are the basic thing around cloud computing. So the people who have not worked on, say, an Azure, so you should only understand that we are not purchasing it. It is just renting. Okay, it is that simple definition. It sometimes become quite techy when people talk about cloud computing, and people would feel that it's so difficult. It's just a paradigm shift. Instead of like we maintaining things in our own premises, we are asking someone to maintain it in their premises, and we are paying them instead of we kind of taking care of that. Okay. And as Vinayak also said, right, it is also about agility that it brings, right? So the goal of cloud computing is to make running a business easier, more efficient, whether it's a small startup or large startup. And then it is also the characteristics like high availability and hyper scalability. So guys, maybe if you have noticed in last 10 years or so, the number of startups that has gone or I mean that has increased is primarily increased because of cloud computing. I mean, if there was no cloud computing, then there would be very difficult for people to start so many startups. So now if somebody has an idea, all they has to do is they just have to rent a supercomputer. They can even rent a supercomputer if they want. But before this, this was not possible. Okay. So then we talked about high availability and hyper scalability. And then the other aspect of it is we can also draw an analogy of electricity utility, right? So see it as an utility. So for example, we also talked about storage and computing or networking, but whatever you want to do, you just have to use it. And so that's the case also of our electricity, right? So if you are using electricity at home, so when you switch on, you don't really worry about, okay, which grid of electricity, where is the unit, and is it having right environment, or is it having the right hardware to run and generate the electricity. So you just don't worry about all those stuff, right? You just switch on and you just start to utilize the let's say the fan, the AC, or the light, right? So it should be as simple as that when it comes to the technology. And hence what cloud computing has essentially done is it has made it as an utility. So before this, it was not a utility. It was like you purchase it. So you can also think of an analogy like you want a light, then you would set up an electric grid at nearby your home, and then you would spend time in generating the electricity, and then you would also ensure that the electricity is reaching your home. So all this is not required. Yeah, when it comes to cloud computing. So this analogy really works very well. And the second is also it's talking about like you don't have to worry about the upgrades at the plants, okay? And then you also don't have to manage. So if you one day you need more electricity, other day you don't need any electricity because you are going on vacation, then you don't have to worry about it. Uh, so I think this is one of the best analogy I have seen, and so I thought of sharing this, and this is also available on the Microsoft documentation. Okay, so as a technology professional, what it says is like if we can use this as an utility, it makes our life so easy, and then we can only focus on doing what it is required to be done, right? So if you have to build some logic, if you have to utilize electricity the way we want, okay? So that's the utility feature. Okay, now what is the motivation for cloud? So how many of you guys have done some shopping on Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or how many of you know what is Black Friday or Thanksgiving Day? Anyone can talk about a bit about it and share their experience? Hello. Anyone working for US clients, guys, who know what is Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I worked for one, which was Metal. It's a world's leading toy company. So
Okay.
Metal Fisher Price. So whenever these days are there, then there is a lot of traffic and there is a lot of load over websites. So they had the websites in the AWS, and I think there is some mechanism by which if there is a like more than a specific amount of load, a new server will automatically roll up to handle the other requests. Those are the things I am aware, but I have not done shopping, but I have worked for that client.
Okay, cool, wonderful. But I think you kind of covered what I wanted to cover. So essentially, what Black Friday is, it's basically a day after Thanksgiving Day, and that's a particular day on which the people in US and there to some extent people in UK, it is primarily in US that they turn out to do enormous shopping. So this is the day on which they would do shopping that is more than done throughout the year. So there is a comparison that you do shopping throughout the year, and then the comparison that the black shopping done on a Black Friday, which is just the next day. So after Thanksgiving, Black Friday comes, and Black Friday the websites are like 100 like millions of users are accessing it only on that day, and later on they are not accessing it because it's just like business as usual the next days. So what happened is Amazon, being a retailer and one of the biggest retailer, they were thinking of or what you can say is uh, e-commerce website, right? So they thought of like building some platform where they can try to scale up and scale down whenever it is required. Okay, so to or basically they wanted to scale up to handle this peak. Okay, so they came up with something of this concept of cloud computing, that they created the resources and they utilized those resources to peak whenever it was required. And during the same time, what they thought is, so this was kind of an Amazon baby, that they thought that, okay, why not rent the storage, because we have so much of resources. What are we going to do this resources in the ideal time, right? So they thought of utilizing these resources by kind of renting it. So they started with renting storages in the beginning. Okay, then they said, okay, take 5 GB for $5 and all those stuff. So I remember like in 2010 when I purchased a camera during Thanksgiving Day, I got a 5 GB space along with the purchase of camera, which was free for like one or 2 years, and then it was paid service. Okay, so it started with storage, and later on, what Amazon also realizes, if they can sell storage and people are interested in storage, let's try to sell also the compute. Okay, and when they also realize that, okay, people are also interested in storage, they are also interested in compute, they are also interested in a lot of stuff like networking. Okay, then why not we package this and sell this as something called as Amazon Web Services? And they started this initiative, and they are the leading cloud provider in the industry. They are number one, or they are almost like Azure is almost neck to neck to each other, like Amazon as well as AWS. So guys, this is how the inception of cloud was. What was the motivation for cloud? So to manage the peak. So and in couple of surveys, so you might have heard this news that Flipkart website crashed like in 2017, in 2018 or 2017, I guess, when they were trying to. So this is primarily the motivation that then what happens is the number of retailers website went down. They failed to cope the surge in Black Friday traffic, and failing to prepare the peak can cause poor performance side, downtime, and ultimately loss of revenue. So it's a big loss. So if as I said, like the shopping that is not done throughout the year is done on this day, right? Which is Black Friday. So you can imagine that what is the peak. And what is the traffic on this? So you can't afford that even a single second. And everyone is hitting the website looking for different deals. And behind the scene, it's basically cloud computing that is handling the peaks as well as handling the valleys whenever it is required. Okay. So now this was about Black Friday. Now there is also a day. So I think this started somewhere in like in last 1 or 2 decades, Cyber Monday, when internet got very popular. That so Black Friday was always there, but it went online after the internet era, and then one day was not sufficient for shopping. So people also started shopping, and they coined this term Cyber Monday. So on these 2 days, it's like 70-80% of discounts, and to handle the traffic on these 2 days, primarily the inception of cloud happened. Okay. So any questions on this, guys, on Black Friday? You should shop on Black Friday. It is coming on 20th of November this year. So heavy discounts are there always. Okay. So I assume that you have understood the shopping concept on this, and why there would be so much of demand, and later on why there is no one later on really doing so much of shopping or using the website. So what used to happen previously, right? So let's say if I take a company like Kohl's, who is a big retailer, or say Marks and Spencer, and any other big company, Toys R Us, so they initially had their own data centers, okay, and they had to maintain all these data centers. Okay, so now what they are doing is instead of maintaining the data center, they are the same setup that you can see on the screen, they are renting it. So that's the difference between a data center, and that's the difference between the cloud. So any questions, guys, between data center and cloud, let me know.
Can you come up again?
Yeah. Sorry. So what we were saying is, see, if I have a company, a small company, or I have a startup, which has an idea, I want to build some artificial intelligence tool, or I want to build some e-commerce website. So if I want to handle the website, I have to have a data center in which my websites would be deployed. Okay. So previously, before cloud era, people were actually doing a setup of data centers like you can see on this screen. And after cloud things started, people have stopped setting up their data center. They would just rent these data center, which is what we call as cloud, and they would rent it, and they would utilize the storage, the compute, or networking features out of it. So that's before and after. So understanding this picture and understanding how cost intensive this can be. So that was the reason I showed this image. Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. And then about the certification again. So the certification is like this. So understanding the cloud concept is almost 25%, 15 to 25%. And understanding core Azure services is 30 to 35%. And then security, which is a very important feature, is 30 to 35%. And then what is the pricing that is offered? Because what I have seen is, I'll tell you an incident in our company. So we have Premier support from Microsoft. Okay, so Premier support means there would be one account manager from Microsoft who would be 100% allocated to us, but we were not aware of it, and we were using much basic service where no one from Microsoft really works on those services. So understanding the Azure pricing and the different service support model is very important. If you don't understand it, it is like you are having the feature, but you are not utilizing it. And that was happening with us. And when we understood that, oh, we are on premier support, and it is like we just call them and ask them to fix the problem, and they just are working on it 24/7. So that is the difference. So understanding it is very important, and it covers 20 to 25% of the certification scope. Okay, guys, so this is the certification scope. So I'm not going to talk about each aspects of the certification now. I'll directly talk about these topics later on. So it has, so the first topic covers like high availability SaaS and a couple of things like availability zone, etc. Then the second topic covers things like big data and all the different services. So Azure has so many services. I can easily say that 400 odd services are there. I can also show you the screenshot later on. Okay. Then the next thing is understanding the security, privacy. These are like networking concepts. So we'll connect with, I guess it was, who was it? It was Abhinav. Was it Abhinav or Abhishek? We're talking about who works in networking primarily in NSG.
Shivam.
Yeah, Shivam. Yeah, sorry. Shivam. So Shivam, this also has some security aspect, privacy compliance. So this is like 25-30%. And then understanding the pricing model is like we already said, it's 20 to 25%. And then there are questions like what can be the uptime, what can be the downtime. So you will be asked a question like, okay, so I want the website is down for 4 hours, okay, in a year. So what is the availability? So how do we calculate availability of the website? How do we calculate downtime? And all those different costing and all those factors. So those questions would also be there that we'll cover later on. I guess this is chapter number 10 or 11, 12, something. Okay. So I think we already discussed about why cloud services, but I think we should quickly again go through a couple of important things, because from the certification aspect, these things are quite important. Okay, so first thing is, I mean, these are different dimensions, and maybe at times it would appear that, okay, these are the same things, but there is a slight different flavor added to it. Okay, so the first thing is drive IT costs down. So we already discussed at length. So the infrastructure reduces capital expenditure, right? So we are not purchasing those data centers ourselves, right? So that means we are not spending any amount on it. That means we are saving those money. So that is the cost that is being done. It also allows you to scale data storage up or down to meet customers' demand, right? I talked about Black Friday, and then I also talked about Cyber Monday. But let's assume that Saturday and Sunday there are no deals. Everyone knows the deals are only on Black Friday and only on Cyber Monday. Okay, so why should I have services running on say Saturday and Sunday, right? So I will again scale down on Saturday and Sunday. So this kind of features, like whenever you want to upscale, whenever you want to downscale, that is available. You can spin up applications. So this helps in reducing cost. Okay, so this is very important thing. Okay, then the next thing is increasing security in the cloud. So now what is very important is since cloud providers are very big companies like Azure, then Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, and Amazon, they have the best of the best technology, and they have best of the best tools. So they can always have better implementations of security in cloud. Then we can have those enabled over here. Okay, so when we go on cloud, we have many features. I mean, MFA is one feature. Then we are using for MFA we are using CyberArk. People might be able to relate to it. So when higher security is much higher on cloud, and so this is one important aspect. Then reach wider markets. So offering your product to wider markets. So imagine that I have a small startup in India, and I initially just have a data center which is just in India, right? But with cloud, I can have, there's a concept of regions where through which I can have a data center, or I can have a cloud resource sitting in US. I can have a cloud resource sitting in UK or anywhere, wherever I want. There are many regions. And in that region, we can easily reach out to the customers over there in that region. Then the other concept is accelerate deployments. Okay, so since like cloud is quite readily available, right? So you can have things like DevOps. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about DevOps or used DevOps, but you can really do a lot of deployments which are integrated with cloud through them, and then there is no real limitation on what is the hardware that you should be having. So I can talk about one incident where we wanted to do a deployment on the server, but the application that we had built was very memory intensive and which needed a lot of memory. So we had to increase the RAM of our server. Okay, so what we had to do is we had to make a request. So I'm talking about a time where cloud was not existing or cloud was not there. So we had to raise a request with admin. Admin had to bring down the server, install the RAM physically, and then so all those kind of things happened, and then we were able to deploy. So deployments are really fast. You don't have to do any kind of thinking, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that you should design applications which are very poorly designed in terms of performance. They are utilizing unnecessary space, memory. So it has to be balanced well. Okay, so this is important aspect. Then increase in the customer satisfaction. So again, at the same time, I think as a customer, so this is more from our perspective. So we as a customer are more satisfied because we don't have to really think about any downtime or I mean, there are many aspects to it. So it's like always available to us. Then simplicity, simplify the sales processes. So again, I'll not talk a bit more on this, but it's more like, I mean, there is no hassle in selling it. It's readily available, most of the things. Then essentially at the end, what we do is everything is readily available. Storage is there, networking is there, compute is there. All we have to do is build our logic and do the deployments. Okay, so that's what they are asking. Like just spend time on spend more time on innovation. So that's what you just do it. So they are offering SaaS platforms where so it is called as a software as a service. So we'll cover this term later on. But with this, you get everything ready-made. You don't have to do anything. Okay, so that's the thing. Then the next thing that we have is what is cloud provider responsible for? Okay, so first of all, we understood what is cloud computing. So cloud computing is renting, and people who are owners of this cloud are basically cloud providers, right? So Microsoft, Amazon, and Google are very popular. Microsoft provides Azure, Amazon AWS, and Google provides it Google Cloud, okay, which is called as GCP. So what it is going to offer is, as we already saw, it is offering compute power, storage, networking, and of recent data science and analytics is also very popular. So it's also offering analytics services. So these are the 4 offerings. Okay, the basic offering that we again want to slightly deep dive into is compute power and storage. Okay, so before we dive into the 3 and look at the 3 flavors of compute, any questions guys on what we have covered so far? Because this is more of an informative, no real concepts. The concepts would come later on, but if you have any conceptually, if you are not clear, you can stop and ask me now. Okay.
No questions, Yogesh.
Yep. Thank you. So compute power, right? So compute power, what you understand from the compute power is basically we want a computer, right? Where we would do some processing, right? Or we can also do some storage in the virtual machine. That's the secondary thing. But primarily you think about you want to do some processing. Like what you want to do is we are basically into shipping and logistics, right? So we want to process the invoices, or we want to process the POs, and a lot of things are to be done, right? So this has to be processed somewhere, which needs CPU cycles, etc., right? So a virtual machine is one of the first offering in compute which is very popular. So what people who are the early adopters of cloud, they have done is they have first adopted virtual machine. Okay, so the first feature of many people who have taken cloud services, so they just start with virtual machine. So what essentially it means is, again, remember that image of our data center, which showed that big blue image and a lot of, so imagine that is not owned by us anymore. We are just having a virtual machine that is sitting inside that data center, sitting inside that server, and that is just sitting somewhere, anywhere, like in Microsoft, Google, or cloud, or AWS, and we are just renting it, and that is just giving the same look and feel. So we log into our computer on that data center, or we log into this computer on that virtual machine, which is sitting across, which is available maybe in the same region or say in a different region. So this is the first offering that we have, and it's called as a virtual machine. So in this virtual machine, it includes the operating system. So we can choose that whether we want Linux based or virtual machine, or we can have a Windows based virtual machine. Okay, so this is about compute power, and it is about the virtual machines. Okay, so I think virtual machine is pretty easy to understand. Even before cloud happened, they were actual virtual machines which were just sitting in the data center. Now instead of sitting in the data center, they have changed their location. Their address is changed, and the address has gone into cloud. Okay, so it's that simple. Virtual machine conceptually doesn't changes, their location and their place changes. Okay, now the next offering is container, which is very interesting, and of recent this has become very popular. Okay, so with virtual machine, what happens is we have more control. So we get a operating system, and in this operating system we would install some softwares. So people who have logged into virtual machine install SQL server on that. They install what you can say, they install the analytics services on that, and they install a lot of whatever things, like they want notepad, textpad, whatever they want, they will install it on that. But with containers, so containers is basically something like, just a moment. Yep. Yes, Nusrat has a point. Okay, so containers is basically something like you can just have a runtime environment, and within that runtime environment you can execute anything. So you don't need an operating system. So we'll have an image later on, and we'll also cover container in a great detail. But you can imagine that virtual machine is slightly giving us more control, and container is giving us less control, but it is like very easy. Like if I want to deploy a web application, I don't have to spin up a virtual machine. I will just have to spin up a container, and in that container my web application would easily run. So it is as simple as that. So for specific places we'll use container, and at specific places we'll also use virtual machines. Okay, so that's about this containers. Then the next thing that we have is serverless computing. So serverless computing is also more is kind of interesting, but it is I mean, from the name you can say that, see, in the first case virtual machine, we had a virtual machine, right? We had to log into that virtual machine, or we have something which is like a processing unit which is there dedicated for us. Okay, in the second case we saw that container is there and it is also dedicated for us, and in that we can do any deployments, and we can you spin up a container, it becomes live, and then our application is also running up and running. But in serverless computing, there is no server as such. Okay, there is just a service in Azure. It's called as Azure Functions, and this particular thing is a small piece of code that you want to run. So the example that they have been given here is like, let's say you register for some event. So let's say you take you book your flight, right? And then you get an auto email that these are your flight details. You do it on Book My Trip, you do it anywhere, right? So this is serverless computing. You have a small piece of code. So if you look at from virtual machine, when you start to container and to serverless computing, it becomes like the control becomes less, but it also becomes very specific. Okay, so these are the three basic computing features that are available, and there are more, but we want to talk a bit about this now, and later when we jump on the topics, we'll also cover those. Okay, then how do we compare it? So as we talked about it, so virtual machine is here we have more control. We have the operating system, and then we can install some softwares. In containers, we don't have to install any software. We just have a container in which we deploy the application. And the beauty about container is it is platform agnostic. Like it can run on Linux, it can run on Windows, and I can deploy, it can have all the dependencies. So for example, I want to deploy a web application. It needs certain set of libraries and dependencies. All those dependencies and libraries are made available in the container ready-made. So if I go to virtual machine, I have to take that responsibility of making that available. Okay, when I come to container, it is ready-made, made available to me. So I don't have to really worry about installing those libraries explicitly. Okay, so that is and about function, you don't have to really worry about anything. You just have to write a function, and in Azure functions, it will just get executed, and there is nothing dedicatedly allocated for it. Behind the scene, it is allocated on the cloud, but we don't sign up anything, sign up for anything directly. Okay. So any questions on these guys? This is one of the interesting.
Yogesh, my question is container and function, where I'm like confused. If you say function, so suppose I wrote an entire code and there is a function in it. So it's kind of that, and the entire app will run in container. How they are different exactly?
Yeah, so you can say event driven. Yeah, so let's imagine that you have a whole website, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that website you design and deploy in a container. Okay, let's keep it that simple. And that website can have a lot of functions, but let's say you want something which is, then there are these concepts of microservices, right, which is very popular, and then functions. So you consume that function, because signing up function is very common and getting an alert is very common. So it is not specific to your website. It is just common. Anyone can go ahead and use it. Anyone in organization can use it. So that can sit in function. That doesn't have to sit in the container. Are you able to differentiate it that way? That it is not sitting with me, it is sitting somewhere else, and I'm just kind of consuming it whenever an event is driven, and it is serverless. I have a container which is
like so it's like let me like what I'm understanding. It's like suppose I'm on Flipkart, I purchase something and now I have to make the payment, so I'm using some other person's services just to make the payment, right? Like that.
Yeah, that also you can say. So I mean, see, you in a very simple term, a microservice can be anything, or functions can be anything. Even the example that you gave is a perfect example of web service. Even if you go in a ATM, right? You can go in any ATM. You can walk in any ATM. So in ICICI ATM, you can use SBI card. So that's also an example of function. You use SBI card. So SBI doesn't have that code, right? So it would have some small snippet which is a microservice that is hosted by SBI, but ICICI would be able to consume it. So that's how it is. It is a small bit of code that is through web services, you can say simply, and it is not a big functionality. In short, it's a small functionality, very specific, and you can use it that way, consume it that way.
Okay, and regarding container, suppose I have a website which uses Java and I have deployed it in a container. So it's container's responsibility to provide me all the Java libraries and everything, right?
Yes. So okay, you choose that kind of container. So you will have to choose that kind of container, flavor of that container.
Okay, I choose flavor of the container. And suppose the next day Java has an update and container has been updated and my code is not running. Who will be responsible for it?
So usually what happens is, even this is a classic case of even with the cloud, right? So what cloud does is, I mean, they would not really be taking care of like, okay, what kind of code that you have, is your code really outdated? There is a possibility that your code can stop working. There is a possibility. I would not say no, but they would publish those notifications well in advance that, see, this is a release upcoming and there is no backward compatibility. Usually it doesn't happen that there is no backward compatibility. They have to have backward compatibility, because if there's no backward compatibility, then it really becomes difficult. So essentially there are such things where we run into problem, but with container, the container are also evolving. They are not static. So when they realize that, okay, Java and this feature is updated, they are also updating their libraries. So that's the reason containers are so popular. Containers are not static. They are also evolving, and our application is also evolving. So it goes hand in hand, and they don't really kind of, I mean, there is a possibility of the situation that you said. I've encountered that in DevOps, but that is, I mean, we have to be also looking at the newsletters and what is coming, and we'll also be notified about it.
Okay, so Yogesh, as I work in networks and security here in Perimeter team. So as a networking and security engineer, my first doubt will be when I will roll out a virtual machine, when I will use a container, and when I will use the function, because I want to be like, I don't want to spend more. I want to keep my cost as low as possible, because as you can say, virtual machines cost will be always higher than a container, and a container's cost will be higher than a function.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah. So yeah, so the cost when to use what is what you are saying, right?
Yes.
Yes. So see what
When
happens
to use
is
what?
yes. So what happens is in virtual machine, Nusrat is one of our team member. I think she is logged in and she uses virtual machine extensively. So why she uses virtual machine? Because she wants more control on what she is doing in that Azure network. In that Azure, she has some softwares like analytics services running on it, analysis services running on it, and so those can be done in a virtual machine which is running on Azure. Okay, so you imagine that you want a computer, right? So if you want a computer, you would go for, let's say, most probably virtual machine. But let's say you don't want a computer, you don't want anything apart from just an application. Then you go for a container, and then there is a situation that you just want to sign up. Then you go for a function. So it's based on your need. So Nusrat, you want to add anything on the virtual machine thing over here? Since you are one, I mean, APMT is one of the team that is extensively using it. Okay, I think. Okay, yeah. Yep. So, but yeah, I think that is the explanation, Shivam.
Yeah.
And
Okay. Thank.
yep. Yeah.
We will research on it and we will
Yeah.
ask later.
Yeah. But essentially, see, it is it is like if you want more control, so you can also think of something like this. So you want to install some softwares on it. You want to utilize, do some more computing, run some SQL queries on it. Then you will go for a virtual machine where on which you install TextPad, you install a lot of things. But that is not possible on container, right? So
Yeah.
it's
No.
that. Yep. Okay, cool. So storage. So as we discussed in the beginning, is it all started with storage, right? And again, anything that you do online has to be somewhere related to read and write operation. And what the cloud services are doing is they are offering the storage. Okay, so all these services, I mean, again, it has the same feature, like it can scale up anytime, it can scale down anytime, and so I think that's pretty much about the storage. It's quite explanatory. So try to just imagine that you want to store photos, as I gave you an example at the beginning. You want to store some documents. You can utilize the storage feature of the cloud. Okay, and yep. So storage and compute. So guys, we covered these two things, and in compute we covered three different flavors. So if there is any further question, maybe we can take it at the end, and we can move on the next topic. Okay. Yep. So the next thing is yeah, it's cost effective. So I mean, this is see the whole cloud is about cost effectiveness and all these 8 characteristics of cloud. But so we'll quickly go through this. So it is pay as you go, and it is purely consumption based. So whatever you consume, like electricity bill, you only pay for that. There is no upfront infrastructure cost, no need to purchase. So in the certification, you would be asked this question related to capex and opex. So hence we should be quickly reading this. So no need to purchase or manage costly infrastructure that you may not use at fullest. Then ability to pay for additional resources only when they are needed, and ability to stop paying for resources that are no longer needed. So like I gave an example of Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and in between, if you don't need it, we can stop using it. And there's also like better cost predictions. Then it's scalable. So there are two aspects in scalability. So one is called as vertical scaling, and other is called as horizontal scaling. So I think this is also not a new term, but both these features are available, and we can do it automatically or we can do it manually. So I think I'll ask this question to the audience. From the audience, anyone wants to talk a bit about what is vertical scaling and what is horizontal scaling? Vinayak, want to give it a shot?
Yeah, hi, this is Rohit Jain from Parameter team.
Yeah.
Yeah, so vertical scaling mainly concerned with the CPU utilization and the processing part of the particular machine or a server. And horizontal scaling means to increase the number of machines.
Right. Exactly. So that's what is also called as scaling up or scaling out. So there are two options. So either we make our computer bigger by adding more RAM or more storage, or we add more number of computers. So when we are adding more number of virtual machine, more number of computers, it's called as scaling out, which is also called as horizontal scaling. And vertical scaling is when we are increasing our memory, we are increasing our, say, CPU or whatever you are increasing. So let's say you have one computer, like we have a laptop, right, which was initially 8 GB, and now it is been a 12 GB laptop. So it is an example of vertical scaling. But if you had one laptop initially and now you are having two laptops, then it is an example of horizontal scaling, that you are using two laptops. Okay, so that's not a perfect analogy, but
So
yeah.
Yogesh, being a big data developer, so we will be doing scaling out and that horizontal scaling functionality. I mean, in day in day out, right?
So
I mean, adding
most of,
nodes and
yes,
scaling
from
scaling
out.
our application in a horizontal way.
Yes. So in big data terms, adding cluster to it can be the right solution. But you know what? We are even going beyond big data, and we are even like big data agnostic now. So cloud is encompassing big data also. So at times there can be some solutions where scaling up can be a solution, and at times there can be also a solution that horizontal scaling can also be benefit. So the examples we can look at later on. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Okay, so that is about horizontal and vertical scaling. Then it's elastic. Okay, so again, when we say elastic, you always should remember the example of Black Friday. That imagine that one day you have 100 users and another day you have 1 million users or one. So that is the scaling that I'm talking about. Okay, we are not talking about anything like, okay, आज 4 users थे और कल 10 user हो गए. That is not what we are talking about in terms of elasticity. Elasticity is really this scale of elasticity where big organizations like Flipkart had failed. Okay, their site was down. So you kind of don't look it in a very small window. Like you have to really look it into a big scale, that these big organizations were not able to have an infrastructure to handle or being elastic. So what is cloud offering is auto elasticity, where you automatically add resources and you automatically also reduce resources. For example, how many of you are using Databricks? Anyone in the team are using Databricks?
Yes, Yogesh, we are using.
Right. So we sign up for clusters, right? In we have like a number of clusters, and then what we do is those clusters. There is a feature that the clusters can automatically stop, right? After a certain time, if you're not used for 1 hour, right? And that's also an example of elasticity, right? So and at the first start, then it will take a couple of seconds to start, and then the notebook would start running. And then if it goes high, then it can increase the number of nodes. If it goes down, it can automatically scale down. So that is the example of elasticity that we are talking about, guys. Okay. So people who are kind of familiar to Databricks can easily relate to it because they are actually using it. And people who are not familiar can think of Black Friday and Cyber Monday examples. Okay, so this is about elasticity current. Again, in terms of current, I mean, it is like making things available now. So take an example that we are imagining that data center and something in the data center fails, right? A disk fails in that data center and you want to replace that disk. So imagine that in our office in even Viman Nagar, the data center is having one disk that is failed, and we are asking, we are swiping our card and we are going entering in the data center. We are trying to replace that. Will bring some downtime. So the live feature, like on demand feature or live feature, goes away if we are having data center, but that doesn't go away when we are having cloud. It is always available. Somebody is replacing failed hardware behind the scene. Somebody is upgrading the system behind the scene. But for us, it is always available. We don't have any downtime. Okay. And then the other feature, which is it is reliable. So data backup is there, disaster recovery is there, replication service is there. So when I say replication service, in Azure, every file is stored at 3 places. Okay, so you don't have to, do any. So हम क्या करते हैं कि if we are creating a presentation, हम backup करके भी रखते हैं अपनी जगह. if we are having a data file, we also backup it at somewhere place. But if it is Azure, Azure has already placed it at 3 places, so you don't worry about it. Okay. Then there is a disaster recovery, that in whatever disaster, if there is a natural disaster that is happening, then let's say I'll tell you an example of Columbus. In my so our headquarters in my previous organization was Columbus. Okay, and in one of the flooding, the data center was underwater. Okay. Okay, so imagine that this is one of the biggest auto industry company, and the data center was underwater. But there was another data center in another location, which was functioning. So that is there. Like we should have measures for disaster recovery. Then data backup is, again, we talked about it. Replication service, we talked about it, and fault tolerance. So it also ensures that the end customers are not impacted. So if I am using it, Azure is ensuring 99.99 after 99, 99.999. Okay, 9 times 9. So that is the SLA that they are offering. So you can imagine that essentially it means that it would be it would be running all time. Okay, and then it's global. So we have covered it a bit, but there is a concept of regions in Azure. There is concept of availability zones. So there can be a West Europe region, there can be a US region, there can be a India region. Okay, so we are going global. I mean, if I'm purchasing, if a startup is purchasing some cloud services, then if they're having a lot of user base which is in US, all they have to do is they have to create their resources in that region. Okay, and then there is replication between resources and all those stuff. So that is also a case which makes it truly global. And then the security, right? So you imagine again the case of the data center, that you are taking care of all the physical security. So there is a person sitting outside the data center. They are ensuring that no one is on the 7th floor. I see many times that people are entering without even swiping, but the same can't happen on the data center, right? They are really secure, nobody can tailgate, and so all those, we are having that headache. But just imagine that we are not in the cloud. All those headache is not with us. Even the AC bill up, we don't have to pay anything. Nothing on the security. So the cloud, they have certain standards that they have to follow. They have certain ISO rules or certain ISO standards to follow, and highest level of security is given. They have their own guards, they have their own standards. So that is again very secure, much secure than what a small IT company. Just imagine that there is 4 pass outs from IIT or from an engineering college, and they want to do a startup. I mean, they can't afford even their own salaries, right? I'm just giving an example. How can they afford a salary of a person who is there, who can be their security guard? Once their ideas get big, they might make money, but in the beginning, they want to build a startup and build an idea, right? So that can be possible easily, and it can be made secure easily with cloud. Okay, then any questions on these 7 features, guys? I kind of quickly went through, but we'll be keep talking about it when there are actually the services coming in and in more detail. Okay. So, yeah.
No questions, Yogesh.
Cool. Thanks for now. Okay, then the next thing is compliance. Okay, so compliance, there are very different compliance, right? So there is SOX compliance, then there is compliance around GDPR. Yeah, recently, I guess 2 years or 1 year back, GDPR was implemented in Europe, which is the data protection regulation. So after that, each and everything changed. Every website has to have an accept policy. They have to accept cookies. So all these compliances, right? So what the cloud services are already offering it. So for example, if you want GDPR, then you have to just say that I want GDPR in my cloud state. I want HIPPA, which is health insurance portability and accountability. So these are mostly from the US. Few are from Canada and US. But essentially, you don't have to do a lot. Okay. You just have to sign up for that, and you get the SOX compliance. You get the UK. So for example, in US, there is a US government Azure. So let's say if you want to do something in cloud, people are not very kind of feeling secure, right? But if they use Azure, government Azure, then it means that it is very secure and it is within the government premises. So there are so many features that are available from the compliance standpoint of view. Okay. Then economies to scale. So what economies to scale means is with less you are making more profit. Okay. So we'll not talk more about it because there is no certification question around this. There is a 100% certification question on this. I got it on CapEx and OpEx. So what is CapEx, guys? I think this is a very, I mean, anyone should be able to tell it. So guys, anyone wants to attempt what is CapEx and what is OpEx? Finance people, anyone from finance? Or should I ask
Is it
someone?
capital expenditure?
Yes, it is capital expenditure, and then there is operational expenditure. So data center kind of scenario, right? It is basically a capital expenditure scenario. So you're spending money, and then there is a question around this, whether which kind of service is CapEx and which kind of service is OpEx is available in for the certification. Okay, so this everyone should pay close attention on this. So it's easy to understand that CapEx is like upfront cost and which has value that reduces over time. Okay, and I mean you get deduction of expenses from your tax bill and all those stuff. So what is the types of it? So server cost, storage cost, network cost, and all those things, right? Is basically an example of CapEx. Now what is operation? So operation is like spending money. It's like kind of leasing. So if you are leasing something and then you are paying for it, you sign up for something and then you are paying for it, or the maintenance thing. So that is basically the operational cost of the thing, of running a software, of maintaining it, or whatever. So billing at the user and or the organization level, then scaling charges based on usage demand. So again, here we are seeing that there are certain benefits of OpEx. Then the next thing is benefits of CapEx and OpEx, which are again covered over here. So in CapEx, the benefit is like at the end of at the start of the project. Let's say we have certain threshold of a budget. So we are very much at the beginning of it. We know that, okay, this is the budget of the project and this is how we plan for it. So you buy one virtual machine, you buy two net NSGs, you do DDoS. So there are two types of DDoS. One is free, one is costly, one is standard. So DDoS is kind of an attack, which is I'll come to it later on. But in the free, by default, all the services in Azure are protected by that attack. In that attack, what happens is a computer can emulate someone else. So for example, I can emulate to be Nusrat, or Nusrat can emulate to be Rohan. So and then they can attack on other systems. So that attack is by default protected in all the Azure services in the basic version. But in the standard version, there are more reports that are available. There are more features that are available. So these are just few things about it. Then what are the benefits of OpEx? Okay, so the demand and growth can be unpredictable, as everyone know, right? So we never know that. I can never predict. So if I don't keep it on auto scaling, I can never predict that. See, every year they are predicting that there are 8 to 10% of growth in the Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Okay, but it can be a case that it is 15%, or it can also be a case that it is going down. So if it is going down, and if I am putting capital expenditure, then I am at a losing end. And if it is going up and I am putting capital expenditure, then also I am at a losing end, because I have a fixed budget. But with OpEx, I am kind of flexible. I am kind of agile to the fluctuating demands. So the next image actually captures it. So let's say the demand can't be predicted, because if we start predicting demand, I mean, then the supply chain, the whole cycle of supply chain would be very much simple. I mean, there is some kind of prediction that is involved. There is some kind of unpredictability. So since it's unpredictable, and let's say this particular red line is representing the capital expenditure. Okay, so it can be in this kind of wave format, right? Which is, it can go up, it can go down, and if it is within this, we are still underutilizing it. Okay, if it is within, we are still underutilizing it. But if it goes over, then our websites are down, right? The example of Flipkart websites were down and they lost a lot of business. So what you should do is we should go in an OpEx mode, in auto scale, auto demand mode, where the demand goes up, our infrastructure goes up. The demand goes down, our infrastructure goes down. Like, we talked about the Databricks example. It auto scales itself. It doesn't have to understand or anything. So that is one example. And then there are many examples. There is a smart way of doing it. There are manual ways of doing it. So these are the benefits of OpEx. Okay. So now we would be jumping in different types of cloud deployment models. So there is a sure shot question on OpEx and what is, like, say, PaaS service? Is PaaS basically an OpEx model or CapEx model? So what do you think, guys? Is PaaS CapEx or OpEx? But PaaS we have not really covered, so maybe we should wait till the end of this session.
Guess is it CapEx, like PaaS, like product as service?
Actually, see, what we have to do is we can choose auto scaling, and we can configure auto scaling at the beginning itself when we are choosing a PaaS solution. So configuring a PaaS is our responsibility while we are choosing a PaaS. So then it becomes an OpEx model. But if we are not configured it to be auto scalable, then it can get converted into a OpEx model, CapEx model, where we have to intervene in between. So as a platform, as a service, we have to, or let's say, it's more responsible for, let's say, like configuring the platform the right way, right? If you have purchased a database, so I'll give an example of PaaS service, which is Oracle database. So not many would be able to understand, maybe because you might have not used Oracle, or say, I would talk about the SQL Server database. So when you take an SQL Server database, then there is a S1, which is basic, which is standard. Then there is a premium one. So if you are doing it going from that way, then it is a what you can say, it's a CapEx model, but you can always convert into OpEx if you convert into an auto scale. Okay, so it is a mix and match.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. Like, if your cost is fixed, then it is CapEx. If you keep your cost is variable, then it is OpEx, right? Is it?
Yeah. Yes, you can say that.
Thank you.
Yep. Then there are, so I think with that, we kind of create one major chunk of cloud, and people who have already worked on Azure, thanks for your patience, because this is more of a repetition and revision for you. For new people, it would be a lot of value add. So guys, I missed one point. So what you should be doing is, as and when we are going through this, right? So you should take certain notes. So for example, you just take a note like what is auto scaling, and just write a one-liner. So by the end of this, you will have 30-40 jargons ready, and then you can go ahead and tell to your manager, see, this is like the 30 jargons. Maybe you don't understand that in that deep, but at least as you walk through this session, you should be having a notepad or textpad. So now also you can start having it, because this is also we are halfway through the session, and we have one pending session of creating a website, and then we have to understand different cloud models. So you can open a textpad and start taking just the basic notes, okay, which I find very handy, and it would also be helpful to you. Okay. Yeah. So with this, we start on the deployment model. So there are 3 deployment models: public, private, and hybrid. So anyone say want to give the definition of this? What is public cloud, what is private cloud, and what is hybrid? Because I think the people who are working on it will be able to answer it to some extent. Anybody? Yatin, you want to give it a shot? Yatin, I can see Yogesh Sankhe. What is a public
Hi,
cloud?
Yogesh. This is Rohit.
Hey,
So I think public cloud is the one which is accessible to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay.
Private is the vice versa. I mean, restricted to an organization or restricted to a team or so.
Okay, yeah, I think there's some part of truth into this, but yeah, uh, yeah, I think you are right, but we'll have to slightly add more points to it. So anyone wants to give it a try, and then also what someone wants to try about what is hybrid model. So thanks, Rohit. Your answer was quite correct, I would say. Anyone else? So I would like to nominate someone. Okay, let me see who I know. Yatin, what is a public cloud? I mean, I don't want to put you on spot, but just try. Okay, looks like Yatin is not. Okay, so yeah.
A public cloud would be like if anybody can use it, like security wise, it won't be like consider the one organization. Other guys from other organization can also access the cloud and they can do their stuff. Like basically Amazon Web Service, they have certain set of clouds like private. They also provide private cloud, public cloud services. So
Yes.
a private cloud will be specific to one organization where they want to share the data among themselves. They don't want to output the data to other.
Hmm. Okay, yeah, that is also a correct answer. So we'll quickly look at the definition of public cloud. So essentially from a person from an organization perspective, so no local hardware to manage or keep up to date. Everything runs on your cloud provider's hardware. So Azure is an example. AWS, as Hardik said, is an example. Cloud is Google is also an example that you just kind of sign up for it, and you just don't have to you do anything. I mean, you don't need a center, nothing. Even a person with two people in their organization just working from home or anywhere, they don't even have office or anything. They don't need anything. That is public cloud, okay? So they don't need anything, and everything is taken care by somebody else. Who is that somebody else? That somebody else is basically the cloud provider. Okay, so this is simple definition of public cloud. Okay, then what are the advantages? It is going to be very high scalability, high agility, then pay as you go, which we know, then not responsible for maintenance and updates as cloud is responsible for it, and minimal technical knowledge to set up and use. So right now we are spinning up our VMs or we are spinning up our few things, right? But we need very little knowledge of that particular, if I want to add a particular thing, right? I just have to go and kind of initiate the process to start that service or to sign up for that service. Okay, so that is how public cloud is. And then the disadvantages. Now, so I know there are few projects within our organization where the data is very crucial and it can't be sitting on a public cloud. So because public cloud is not in our control, right? So it's somewhere else. So it can't be sitting out. So there is a slight disadvantage of the public cloud that I have a data which is of some high compliance. So that data I want to store, let's say within my data center, then I would not be able to use public cloud. So maybe I can use my data center for storing that very secure data, and then I can use public cloud for rest of the thing. So, and again here, don't own the hardware or the services and cannot manage them, right? So we don't own the hardware and services, so we can't essentially manage them. But there can be at times required that we want to manage them for very specific cases. Let's say we talk about legacy systems, right? So legacy systems, we talk about AS400, we talk about mainframe systems. So they are very different altogether. So even the clouds are not started supporting all the legacy systems. So there we can't do it on public. Okay, so that's a simple way of understanding public cloud. Any question, guys? Before, I think understanding private would also help you to understand public and the difference between public private. Okay. So what is a public cloud? So there has to, when you are talking about private cloud, you basically are having a data center, and you are kind of the need is in this particular is also, we also talked about like legacy systems. So you have certain advantages that you would be able to use those legacy system running because it is in your data center. What kind of server is required for AS400? It is very different machine. It's not a regular machine. Okay, so it is not available in the VMs that we have. So that cannot be supported in public, but in private, you can have your own data center. In your own data center, you can do all those things. You can meet the highest level of security because the data would not be leaving your place. It would be within your data center. So like the image that we imagined in the beginning of a data center, it would be very similar to that. But the difference is that you would be able to use a lot of other cloud services. So Azure can run on a lot of cloud services. Mostly the legacy things it can't run, but a lot of other places Azure can run. And then there is a service from Azure, which is also called as Azure Stack Cloud, where it is basically an example of private cloud. Okay. So but then the disadvantages comes like you have to have a capital expenditure because you have to set up that data center. Then owning the equipment limits the agility because let's say you are owning all the equipments, like you are having the storage defined, you are having the CPU defined. So you can't really be that agile like others. So if you look in cloud, you can just change from S1 from standard to premium, and then your database, which was having say 300 or 200 DTUs, it becomes 800 DTUs. So it's that simple when it comes to public cloud. But when it comes to your cloud, it is not going to be that easy because it is your data center. You have purchased those database servers, and it's not going to be easy. And then it also requires IT skills. So the person initially, we would not need any person who with IT skills if we are using a public cloud. We definitely need in networking, but not a pure IT or networking guy. But in this case, since we want to do networking, we want to do a lot of IT skills, and networking skills are required. Okay, any questions guys now between public and private, or you want to share your understanding on it? Hello. Hardik, does it kind of relate to what you said?
Yeah, Yogesh, that's what I said. It's specific to an organization, so it will be a private cloud. So they don't want to like financial data. Some companies don't want to share that or put that into a public cloud.
Right.
So
Okay.
that sort of data comes under the private.
Right. Cloud. Yeah. So Rinku, hi Rinku. Rinku is joining from Bangalore. So Rinku, any questions that you have?
No question related, Yogesh.
Good. Nice to see you, man. So the next thing is hybrid cloud. So guys, I think now since we know public and we know hybrid, we can mix both and we can create a hybrid. We know public and private, right? So we can mix and create a hybrid, right? So that's hybrid cloud. So anyone wants to give it a shot? I think I should ask someone who has not worked in cloud. So guys, anyone who has not worked in cloud and wants to try, or someone who has worked in cloud and want to share their understanding of hybrid, because at least I don't know if we are using hybrid anywhere.
Yogesh, like hybrid is like kind of mix of public and private, where organization owns the data center and but handled by the cloud provider.
Yes, to some extent. Though the other thing is the data center can also be owned by us only. Like we can also own the data center, and only the secure data we can keep it over there, and rest of all the things we would have it on the public cloud. So I think if we have not Abhishek, I think we have Yati, Rohan's team member who is working on HR. Subodh, right? Subodh. So Subodh, I think you guys are not using really private cloud, but maybe yours is a scenario where private cloud might be of use, because we are really talking about boundaries. If we really decide that we have to have a boundary that the data should not leave the organization, then it has to be a private cloud. Okay. So, but then there are disadvantages because it is more expensive. You need to know both, and it is more complicated because we need to understand the boundaries, that where it is leaving our boundary, where it is coming in boundary. We have to put tunnels, we have to put VPNs, we have to put a lot of things in between, and it makes it quite a costly deal. Okay, cool. So type of cloud services. So I think now this is going to be an easy for people who have worked on it. Infrastructure as service. Who would answer this? We have platform as a service and software as a service. So guys, what you can do is you can try explaining it, and also someone can give an example of that kind of service. So let's say someone can try explaining infrastructure as a service, and also someone else can give an example. So anyone wants to try it? Come on guys, we want to become a Azure certified 900 professionals, right? In 1 month's time. So we have to be giving our first attempt now.
So this is Shivam. So infrastructure as a service, what I understand is you don't own the hardware, but you own the OSs there, and what are the most of the facilities they are providing is like you can set up your own firewalls if you want. You can create your own infrastructure over there, or either you can use theirs itself. So it depends on that exactly. Infrastructure setup means it will give you all the possibilities what you can have in your own infrastructure. You can set it up everything there. While if you look at the platform as a service, you get a specific, like I just want to use the databases. That's it. That is a pass. Like Azure databases,
Right.
you don't get
Cool.
the servers.
Right,
But
right.
if you go for software as a service, then you can take
maybe
like suppose
you can
there is
give someone else opportunity.
Yeah, but
Clear
I just wanted to differentiate because these
yeah.
are more related terms. So if you go for SaaS, it's like you use a business intelligence tool of some other organization. That's it. That is their software, and you are using it.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, you answered all the three, but anyone guys wants to give with an example? You also gave example for SaaS as well as PaaS. So for infrastructure as a service, anyone can think of an example? Because we covered the different compute framework. So what do you think, guys? Is that infrastructure as a service? So we covered three things, right? So we covered virtual machines. So virtual machine is kind of giving us infrastructure, and it is giving us infrastructure as a service. So we have to just sign up for it and we get the infrastructure. But the operating system, if we want to do any updates, we want to do any installations, we are doing those installations. We need admin password, and then we do the installations. So that is how it is. So that's an example of infrastructure as a service, which is virtual machine. Then platform as a service. So you get a platform. So he gave an example of database, right? So database is a platform. You want to build things on it. App service is a platform. You want to build applications on it. So you build it. ADF is a platform. You want to build applications on it. So whatever is a platform-like thing where you can build more things, that is your platform as a service. And these three examples, ADF, then app services, then SQL database, are platform as a service. So you get that platform in which you can do software development on top of it. Okay. And then software as a service. So software as a service is you don't do anything. You just get it ready-made. You just go and use it. So one of the example is Skype is a software as a service. Then Office 365, Outlook, you just go and use it. You don't have to you don't develop anything into it, right? You just use it. So this is SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. Any questions, guys?
So Yogesh, database come under PaaS or SaaS? Databricks.
Databricks, you said?
Yeah, Databricks.
Databricks should come under PaaS, because it is basically providing you a platform where you can do data engineering. Okay, it is a platform as a service. So Databricks is a platform as a service. I think HD Insight is another example. So you can.
Yogesh, I have doubt in as about the hardware. So
right.
They are going to provide the infrastructure, right? It
yes,
could be like organization owned hardware or a cloud provider hardware, right?
So basically, when we look at this, Nusrat, we really think only more from the public cloud perspective, because when we really go into the private cloud, then there is it's all like infrastructure as a service is. I mean, we are setting up our own infrastructure. We are not really doing infrastructure as a service. In public cloud, when we say infrastructure as a service, we are asking them to provide us the infrastructure, and we just use the infrastructure. So there you don't maintain the infrastructure at all. You just completely rely on them for the infrastructure.
Okay.
Getting the difference, right? Because in private,
Yeah, like we are considering only the public network. That's why the hardware part is not yet considered.
Right, right.
But if you say the private network, like private cloud, in that scenario, IaaS, like, is it a kind of service, IaaS service in private cloud?
So in IaaS, there is altogether a very different thing. So there is something called as Azure Stack Cloud, which is very different, and there are different terminologies. So those private, this IaaS terminology can't fit in over there because we can say that we can use some of the services from that, but infrastructure, since we are maintaining our own infrastructure gets automatically ruled out because we are doing it ourselves. But let's say if you are doing hybrid, then you can say that, okay, some part of infrastructure as service you are utilizing from public cloud, and rest of the infrastructure you are maintaining yourself as a part of your private. So there it becomes a combination. But in private, infrastructure is not even existing. Infrastructure as service doesn't exist.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Clear. Thank you.
Yep. So the next thing is again more detail, like most flexible category of cloud service as we see. Then migrating examples is like test and development, storage, backup. So instant computing. So we'll not cover this much. Then platform as a service. We already talked about it, so no need to go through it. But it is basically complete development and deployment environment in the cloud. Okay. So for example, when deploying a web application using PaaS, you don't have to install operating system. But if you are saying virtual machine is, if you're thinking of virtual machine, you have to first install operating system. So virtual machine cannot be PaaS. Virtual machine is purely infrastructure as a service. Okay. So this is the difference of the scenario. So here is an example of, this is an example of virtual machine. This is an example of SQL database, ADF, Databricks, and anything which you can think where you're doing some development on top of it to build a software. Okay. Then development framework, analytics or business intelligence. BI is also an example in PaaS. Then the next thing is software as a service. So software, we already talked about it, Office 365, Skype, Dynamics CRM, online. So this is a ready-made software. On this software, you can utilize this and just chat like we are using Skype, right? We are not really also thinking about the scalability of it. Though Skype has certain limit that 250 के बाद हमें broadcast use करना पड़ता है. But I mean, we don't really think about कि अरे मैं जब Skype install करूँ तो मेरे को 10 user के साथ chat करना है तो मेरे को ऐसा Skype install करना पड़ेगा या मेरे को 20 के साथ करना है chat. So we don't really have to think of that. But जब हम PaaS install करते हैं तो हमें उसका configuration aspect पे थोड़ा सोचना पड़ता है कि what kind of configuration should be there. Like I give an example कि S1 select करूँ या premium P1 select करूँ या उसमें P2 select करूँ ताकि मुझे और core मिले. So those kind of differences are there. Guys, I'm using Hindi. I mean, sorry for that because we also have some users from different from Manila, and I think they might not be able to understand Hindi. So sorry for that, guys. Okay, then cost of ownership. I think we have already covered this, so we can easily skip this. Yes, this is how management, the responsibility and managing looks like. So see, Nusrat, on-premise, it's completely out. Okay, so we can't say it as infrastructure as a service. From infrastructure as a service point of view, virtualization is taken care by cloud, servers are taken care, storage is taken care. We take care of the top part. Then this is again something that we take care of, only two parts, application and data. Here we don't take care of anything. We just take a Ola ride and just go, because this software as a service can be an example of defining a car. So a car, if we are owning the car, it can be said as infrastructure of service. If we are just renting a car, it can be thought of as a platform as a service. But we are just using a Ola service So Zoom, if you want to fit Zoom, you can fit it in platform as a service. If you want to fit software as a service, you can try to fit it in Ola, Uber. You just take the ride and go. You don't do anything. Is that making sense, guys? Is that a good analogy to understand? There's an article on this explicitly on LinkedIn. Sometime I read.
So Yogesh, I have one question here.
Yeah.
So basically, like Power BI, it's a visualization tool. So how would you consider that? Is it a SaaS or PaaS? Because for us, we are the developers of Power BI, but once we publish it, the end users, they are doing nothing. They are just visualizing it.
Right. So see, it is a platform, right, on which you are doing the development. So it is a platform as a service.
Mm-hmm.
From the consumption point, they can think of that as a software as a service. But from the overall, in the scheme of things, we have to think it as a platform as a service. Unless we are thinking of a BI solution which is ready-made, which is not having any tweak. It's just ready-made and we are just using it. That can be a software as a service. But Power BI as a development tool cannot be software as a service. It is a platform as a service.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Okay, guys, I think this is it. And now we have a quiz. So let's see what we do in the quiz. Okay, so let's try to answer the first question. Okay, which term from the following list below would be viewed as benefits of using cloud services? What are the benefits of using cloud services?
Elasticity.
Anyone for anything else? Lock किया जाए?
Yes.
Okay, elasticity. Let's go with elasticity. Then suppose you have two types of application: legacy application that requires specialized mainframes hardwares and newer applications that can run on commodity hardware. What cloud deployment model should best suit for you?
Hybrid cloud.
Hybrid. Good. Then you are developing an application and want to focus on building, testing, deploying. You don't want to worry about managing the underlying hardware and software. Which cloud service type should you use?
Platform.
Somebody said SaaS, is it? Or no, everyone said SaaS?
Everyone said
Platform
PaaS.
as services.
Okay, cool. So let's see what our answers are, right or wrong. Congratulations is the right answer. So everything is right, guys. Good.